Hello. I'm excited to have you join me in this class in which we will learn to pass down the ancient knowledge of how to make sense of written markings, allowing students to gather information from a page, a screen, a bathroom stall, or wherever else writing may be found. In this mini lecture, I want to talk about the unexpected and planet altering skill that is human literacy. We'll talk about how literacy started and later how it's going for us. I'm hoping you'll come away from this brief lecture feeling the importance and context of this critical skill that you'll be teaching. Evolution is complex. An oversimplification of the concept would say that traits that enable survival are passed down from individuals who had the traits that facilitated survival or attracted a mate. Humans evolved many traits in these ways. Over hundreds of thousands of years, human bone structure, muscles, and most importantly, brains evolved. Our large human brains evolved to process sounds, connect sounds with meaning, categorize words into parts of speech, and draw associations between word meanings. Communication through language is so hardwired in our neural system that people will develop language even if they're not taught a language. In the 1980s, a school was developed in Nicaragua for students who were deaf. About 50 children from the ages of 4 to 14 were sent there. The teachers didn't use sign language other than finger spelling, and the students struggled to develop understanding of Spanish words. However, on the playground, students wanted to communicate with one another and began using gestures or signs, many of which they had used at home with their families. An MIT linguist was asked to come and study the children and documented the development of this new language without introducing other signs from other signed languages. New students came and continued to develop the language to further satisfy communication needs. Now there are more than 1,500 Nicaraguans who use Nicaraguan Sign Language. So while we are hardwired to learn to speak, even to learn signed languages, we're not hardwired in the same way to learn to read. Surrounding a child with speech will likely result in their being able to speak, but surrounding a child with text will not likely result in their developing the ability to read. It needs to be taught. From the point that humans started marking things to the point that we developed full phonetic writing systems, there was not time to have evolved for this task. Stanislas Dehaene, a French neuroscientist, researches how it came to be that we can read and write, though we didn't evolve toward this specific purpose. His theory of neuronal recycling suggests that brain processes and skills that evolved for other purposes were in place when we first started marking things to associate symbols with meaning and later sound. To be able to read, we have to have visual identification ability to distinguish individual written symbols or letters, even when they're written in fonts that look very different or when words look very similar. Our brain associates the markings with different sounds and then attaches meaning to sounds that appear in different words. Different areas of the brain must be connected by neural networks with instruction and practice that develops those networks. This means that while nearly everyone can learn to speak without instruction, we have to put in some effort and receive instruction to make the connections to learn to read. It's not a natural act in the way speaking is natural for humans. If a particular connection isn't well developed, it can be very difficult for someone to learn to read. We'll talk more about reading and neuroscience in another lecture. Writing was developed in different places around the world at different times. Ancient writing systems developed in the Near East, China, and Mesopotamia. The writing system from Mesopotamia can be traced back to its earliest origins in the 8th century BC. In early stages, writing was represented with physical tokens that represented numbers, common items, or concepts. it evolved to 2D representations, like these tablets representing numbers. The one on the right represents the number 33, representing 33 measures of oil in Iran. Symbols like these developed into the earliest known writing systems, cuneiform. Cuneiform allowed Mesopotamians to record all kinds of things. Children in Mesopotamia were taught to write cuneiform, as shown in this artist's representation. Researchers tell us that both girls and boys learned to read and write. Students would copy a teacher's writing of a set of about 100 basic cuneiform signs. Researchers have found this 100 sign collection on some 600 tablets copied imperfectly. Researcher Moody al-Rashid studies ancient Mesopotamia and writes about the symbols, the records left behind. She shares here on Twitter, or X, a tablet on which students practice the A symbol over and over again some 4,000 years ago. In her book, Between Two Rivers, Moody al-Rashid talks about archaeologists finding this tablet that includes bite marks from a student, which I can relate to having seen students bite all kinds of things, including their work. Another tablet included this caricature of maybe a teacher or a fellow student, as drawn by maybe a child who was bored in class. Over time, writing systems became more abstract, with figures representing the sounds of the language, or the phonetic elements. This was an important jump. A syllable representing a sound might be used to connect the spoken language with printed language, using the rebus principle. In English, a person could draw a bee and a leaf, and it would combine to represent the word belief. Or they could use an image of someone kneeling to represent the sound of the name kneel. A Sumerian name that was common was An gives life, An being the god of heaven. So they might write a star to represent An, or the heavens. And then the arrow would be represented because arrow and life in Sumerian were homonyms, or two words that sound the same. So this jump from having symbols that represented things to symbols that were abstract and tied to sound was a really important jump. In 2000 BC, Phoenician readers and writers took a big step in jumping to representing individual sounds of a language. Phonetic writing systems in which one letter represents one sound or phoneme made reading and writing easier to learn. Other scripts of this time, cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphics, used many complex characters and required long professional training to become proficient. This Phoenician system made it more accessible, though literacy was not widespread. The Phoenician alphabet was an ancestor of our modern day alphabet. You can see the history, or the genealogy leading to English, which are with our Latin-based alphabet, from Egyptian hieroglyphics to Proto-Sinaitic to this Phoenician alphabet that became more phonetic, to Greek alphabet, to Etruscan, and then to the Latin alphabet that we currently use. You can see this poster represents the changes of individual letters as they processed through those different alphabets. This invention changed the world forever. Written communication allows past generations to communicate with present and future people. We were no longer limited by what people could remember and pass down orally. When Copernicus studied astronomy, working to demonstrate that Earth and other planets revolve around the sun, he read the thoughts and ideas of Aristotle from 1,816 years prior. Leonardo da Vinci considered the ideas of Vitruvius, a first-century Roman architect, and applied his ideas to the human body. moral and ethical codes from previous generations, whether the Hammurabi Code, laws of ancient Greece or Rome, or teachings of the Bible or Quran, help us understand how previous peoples governed themselves and served as a model for future code. When students today read Shakespeare's line, they share lessons that every generation of human relearns again and again about our doubts being traitors, making us lose things that we could have, being true to yourself, and a fool thinking himself to be wise, but a wise man knows himself to be a fool. We get to hear firsthand accounts of people who experienced historical events in texts like the letters of John and Abigail Adams experiencing the revolution together as a couple. We can also read the account of what Pliny the Younger witnessed as he described his view of Vesuvius overtaking Pompeii from across the bay. The ability to read and interpret printed communication makes programming possible and all that comes with that. Translations of printed work allow those who don't speak other languages to connect with the experiences of people who live very different lives. So, you are hereby inducted into this school of training scholars. It's a tradition that's been passed down for millennia. It's my personal opinion that two of the most important skills students develop in elementary grades, the ability to interact with and get along with other humans, and this ability to read. This is a critical job. Though literacy may seem ubiquitous, many struggle to be able to access all of these benefits. We'll talk in the next lectures about the state of literacy in the world, the United States, and Utah, and potential consequences of lacking these literacy skills.